This series of short videos is sponsored by the Kentucky Rifle Foundation to share the knowledge and research of select Kentucky Rifle Association members.
Okay, I'm John Strong. I've been collecting Kentucky rifles for about 5 years now. I just came into the KRA 3 years ago. I've had an interest in Kentucky rifles since I was young, like everybody else, probably off Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah.
And then I had to have a Hawken, and then that passed pretty quickly. And then I had started getting into contemporaries that were more realistic, and then as I could afford it, the originals.
What first interested you about the American long rifle?
I've always liked history. I've always enjoyed hunting. I like the primitive wood skills and things like that. So that just kind of came natural to me.
What regions, schools, eras, or makers have you focused your collecting?
My collection is mostly focused on Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Golden Age era, specifically Lancaster County, Strasburg, Pennsylvania is the area that I get into, the makers out of Strasburg, and most of my guns come from Jacob Hoak out of Strasburg, Pennsylvania. Jacob Hoak made sort of your traditional Lancaster County long rifles from that era. He used most of his locks. This is an early one with a hand forged lock, but most of his locks are Schweitzer locks that he used. His patch boxes, probably 95% of his guns use this patch box here. And he wasn't much of a carver. There's only 2 known examples that are carved, but he was a master engraver. So he did a lot of engraving on his boxes and things like that. There's probably maybe 12 to 15 that are in this condition that are known in existence. There's some later ones that are in pieces, but there's probably 12 to 15 out there that are like this.
Okay.
The Lancaster architecture on these, if you look at even like a Dickert, the later ones get slimmer, but they have more of the triangle buttstock. He used the same patch boxes as, say, like an Isaac Haynes did. Gumpf used these boxes. His trigger guards are typical of that area. The butt plates, you'd find this type of butt plate on many of the Lancaster rifles, Haynes, Dickerts, things like that. They don't have a super lot of drop, a triangle buttstock, and they're relatively high comb on these.
Are these parts that the maker would have made himself, or would he have purchased these?
That's a good question. That's something that I was looking into my research, because if you compare these rifles to Isaac Haynes, you'll see the same patch box with a similar style of engraving. So I'm not sure. I'm wondering if they didn't buy either he had some association with Haynes, or they were possibly buying their patch boxes and some of their hardware from somebody local. I haven't found proof of that yet, but I'm starting to think that maybe they bought their supplies from somebody else and they use similar supplies in a similar area, but I don't have any proof of that yet.
Right.
If you're looking at a books and you go into Thoughts in the Kentucky Rifle, the Golden Age, you'll see mahogany, Isaac Haynes, and then you'll see a walnut, Jacob Hoak. And if you look at the two rifles, you'll think that the same person built them. And they're both from Strasburg and Lancaster Township, so they're close together. So they had some kind of affiliation with each other, but I can't say that they didn't buy their parts from somebody else, because I've seen Gumpf and some other people use this patch box.
Right.
That's part of what I'm still trying to research and find proof of. But I'm starting to think maybe they sourced some of their materials from the same people.
So as far as Hoke goes, what time frame are we looking at?
Hoke died in 1831, and that's known. That's what's in print right now. Done some research to try to trace his family lines back, and the best I can figure, he was born about 1764 or 1765. There's nothing in writing that states that, but I found different family trees on Ancestry. It fits the time frame that he was building guns. He was first taxed in 1786, and then he disappeared out of the blue and didn't show up again till 1800. So where he was between 1786 and 1800, I haven't found yet. And that's kind of where I'm wondering, I have to go farther into the research to see maybe I'm still thinking he has some ties to Isaac Haynes, but I think he was mainly he was building, most of his guns are 1800 to probably 1829, 1830. He died in 1831, and in his will there wasn't much information as far as gunsmithing tools left, a couple stocks and things like that, and that's all that was left.
Would you say that some of the lack of details in the historical record of Hoke or what draw you to him, or is it primarily the work that draws you?
I actually liked the patch box, and this was actually the bottom one here was one of the first Kentucky rifles that I ever purchased. Okay. And then I found another, and I kind of stumbled down that road. It wasn't like a planned evolution. I kind of stumbled down the Hoke road when I had a second one, and then I saw a third one, and then a fourth one. It kind of came to me. I didn't actually go. It wasn't what I originally intended to do.
Yeah,
and then when I started the research, I kind of got sucked into the vortex.
Yeah.
They give him credit for filing 68 or 60 locks for the Committee of Safety in 1778. Well, I don't really believe that could have been him now, because I think he was born in 1764 or 1765. So he didn't file locks for the Committee of Safety at 13 or 14 years old. But when you're researching Hoke, his family, there's a lot of Jacobs in the family. And he has an uncle Jacob who was a gunsmith. He has an uncle Matthias who was a gunsmith. His uncle Jacob had a son named Jacob. Matthias had a son named Jacob. There's multiple Jacobs down the line born at different times, and they're all between Strasburg, Lancaster, and Lancaster Township. So to find them it's kind of tricky to stay on one line and go down even when I talk to family members, they get confused in that time period, because every lineage, like his dad Conrad had several brothers. They all use the same names down their family lines. So there's Jacobs, there's Matthias's, there's Conrad's, and the lines just Henry's. They just go right down the line, and every lineage has the same names. So it's kind of hard to research when you're going in and looking at tax record. You see Jacob Hoak, and then you see there's a Jacob Hoak the one that I looks at 1764, and then there's another one born to his uncle Jacob that was 1771, and then you're trying to sort out the records of who was who, which one was a gunsmith, which one wasn't. It's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, so this rifle was broken at the wrist here, and then they wrapped like a brass around it, and they checkered the brass, and the comb had been broken, and it goes up to the breech plug tang, and they wrapped it in the brass and tacked it in on both sides, and then they checkered it, and it's all inlaid so it's smooth. And then there's another place up here where the rifle was cracked, and they gave it stitches. It's actually got wire stitches in it where they gave it stitches, and they did what they had to do to keep it in use. And the other thing that I didn't mention that I just thought about now is Jacob Hoak always used, I've never seen a Jacob Hoak rifle with pins. He always used keys. Sometimes he put escutcheons on and sometimes he didn't.
So did Hoke change his style any through the years?
No, actually he was pretty tried and true. This bottom rifle here is probably one of his earliest rifles.
Okay.
And this one might be pre-1800, 1790s or so, with the forged lock and everything. This is an 1809 dated one. And in the 20 years or so, there's not much change in the style. Some of them are a little heftier, like maybe a wider butt or bigger barrel, but they're pretty much, all the ones that I've seen are pretty much the same length. I've only seen one that used really a different patch box. He's got a couple plainer ones that didn't engrave. And he did make some later rifles that had more drop to them and were slenderer, but there's not many of them. And most of the ones I've seen in that are in pieces, so you can't really tell a whole lot from them. And then this particular rifle here is probably one of the earlier ones. It could be late 1780s, early 1790s. It's got a forged lock, and this is the one that's in Kaufman's Kentucky Rifle book. And it came out of the Eagle Gun Museum in Strasburg and then was sold through that auction back then. In 1984 is when that auction was. And one of the prior owners of this rifle is a Kentucky rifle. He's given me a lot of information. He did research in the old days before computers, where he went to the things and had notes and stuff and was looking at the microfiches. So he's the one that gave me names of family members and gave me the information where I could go on and find the information on Jacob Hoak. The house still exists in Strasburg. The shop is no longer there. There's only two that I know of that have ever been relief carved. One of them is the walnut Jacob Hoak that's in the Kendig book and the Lancaster Longrifle book. And the other one is this one, which came from Kaufman's book. This one's, the relief carving on it is relatively worn. This rifle was rode hard and put away wet, but it's one of the two known rifles that have relief carving. Other than that, I've never seen it. Most of them are plain like this one with just engraving. Most of the times he used a Schweitzer lock like this one. A couple of them are unmarked, but most all his rifles used a Schweitzer lock. So at some point he sourced his locks out and bought the Schweitzers, which was good business instead of having to pound out a lock yourself. The Schweitzer made locks and then sold them to other makers. There's a lot of Lancaster County and a lot of other makers that use Schweitzer locks. During that time period, he made locks and sold them to other gun makers. And when you see a lock like this, they're usually 1790s or later. They're not, you won't see a lock like that earlier than the 1790s. Most of the time they're 1800 or later on those.
Are they an imported lock? Or
no, they're made right in Pennsylvania. It's a Schweitzer lock. Dickert made a similar lock that looks similar to those, and there's a couple of those makers that specialized in making locks. And like I said, most of the Hoaks that I've seen use Abraham Schweitzer, or maybe not Abraham, but use Schweitzer locks. Usually his barrels ran 44 to 45 inches from the rifles that I've seen, and I have one barrel at home on a gun that's not restored yet that's 49, but that one's not done. Pretty much his ramrod pipes are the same on every rifle. Every rifle that I have of his, he made the same pattern pipes, and he didn't deviate much.
What kind of caliber are we looking at here with each of these?
These were typically of the period. These rifles here were pretty small. I'm going to say probably between 40 and 50. Probably if I put a gauge in them, they'd probably say 48, 42, 38, somewhere in that range. Right. Yeah. And some of the rifles that I have of his were smooth rifles, or they were shot out and bored out later, but you can't really tell now they're left smooth. These two particular ones are still rifled. One of the things Jacob Hoak did a lot of was on all his guns, or most of his guns, was a high quality engraving. And then if you look at this particular rifle, it's actually dated 1809, and his rifles all have, or his engraving all has a similar pattern, which is also similar to the Isaac Haynes engraving. And you can pick his patch boxes out a mile away. When he put his patch boxes in there, they're larger than a lot of them. He actually didn't change much over the years. His dimensions are the same. Where he put the screw and where he put the patch box button is the exact same measurement on every rifle that I've seen that hasn't been restocked. They're all the same. And he actually mortised the inside of his boxes the same all through the years, and he used the same number of hinges. So he didn't vary. He stuck to a certain style and basically stuck to it his whole career. He didn't really advance, and later ones get a little slimmer, but you're still obviously his.
So what kind of engraving do we see on these? Can you describe the details?
It's mostly like a leaf and a swirl pattern. This one's dated. He's got some neat borders that if you look at the borders through I can't see them with the naked eye, but if you look at them under magnification, they look like it's just hogged out. But if different people that do engraving told me there are individual lines, and you'd have to have a special tool to do it, that the engravers today don't have a tool that do what he did, so you'd have to grind one down to match what he did. And these little lines that you see thicker are actually real small lines all close together. I've never seen him engrave the barrels or side plates or anything else, just his boxes, which sometimes now makes me wonder if it's similar to Haynes, if they didn't buy them done or somebody did it for them in the area, because Haynes's look just like it. Every single one of his, if you want to look at it and tell if it was restocked or not, all you have to do on a Jacob Hoak is open his patch box and look at it, and he did every single one the same way. Like I said, all the measurements, all the mechanisms are the same over the years, and it's pretty obvious. All you have to do is open the box and you can tell if you have a restocked one or not.
Do other builders that you've looked at have that kind of tell, or is that unique to Hoak?
No, I don't actually, other than the engraving in the patch boxes, I don't think there's really much unique to him. He just a local gunsmith from that area that built what the public wanted, I believe. They, I mean, Isaac Haynes's boxes are similar. Gumpf used this box. There's a bunch of other Lancaster makers have used this style box, so I don't think that it's anything. The only thing would be the engraving. If he did it himself, which I believe he did, but it's possible they bought them that way because the engraving's similar to Isaac Haynes's. Sometime I'll hopefully find evidence tying the two together, but right now I haven't found that yet. I've tried to see. I have to go to Lancaster Township to look for their records, but I'd like to be able to find evidence, because to look at them, you assume there has to be, but I haven't found it yet.
What kind of resources could you recommend for somebody interested more in Hoak's work or the work of his contemporaries?
Well, Hoak's work's actually hard to find, but as far as the research for the contemporaries, to me the best thing are there's books out there like Thoughts on the Kentucky Rifle in the Golden Age is a good one. Rifles of Colonial America. There's smaller books like the Landis Valley Museum put out when they did the Lancaster Longrifle display. The Kentucky Rifle Foundation puts out DVDs, videos, and they sell both of those books and other books on the things. The best way to look at rifles like this to me is to go to the small shows. If you would go to like the Knoxville show or the Virginia show or Martinsburg or the Eastern PA Long Rifle show, there's one in Alabama, and they're all over, and that's the best place to see these. Most of the people will let you pick them up. They'll let you handle them. You can look at them. Most of the people are willing to share what they know, and to me the best thing to do is go out to those shows and see them, and get the books or the DVDs that the foundation puts out. One other thing here, it's not Jacob Hoak's, but it is his half-brother. So his mother died when he was 10, and his dad remarried and had 4 more children, and one of the other children was George Hoak, and he was a gunsmith. And then I found this is a tool from George Hoak, who ended up moving to Ohio, and it's also dated June 23rd, 1809, and it has the tool to stick in and spin the breech plug out of the barrel, and then it has the thread things for threading the breech plugs. So it just ties in with the family. It was something that I found and figured it was a Hoak, so I'd put it in with the collection.
For more resources on collecting, research, high-quality photographs, and more, visit the KentuckyRifleFoundation.org. And to get a taste of what the Kentucky Rifle Foundation offers, visit their Facebook page under Kentucky Rifle Foundation for weekly posts and updates of fantastic original long rifles. I'd like to extend a special thank you to the Kentucky Rifle Foundation for sponsoring this short series of videos. I'd also like to thank John for sharing his passion and knowledge and his willingness to share his information with current and future generations.
I was watching all this.